Hello everyone, so glad you could join us today in our latest adventure. After some of our recent Chinese restaurant reviews, I've been thinking how great it would be to have a time machine or the ability to jump through a wormhole to capture video of the Chinese food of my youth. Way back to an unthinkably long time ago. The 1970s. Sadly, no such technology yet exists. But fortunately, there is today's featured restaurant, where it's like unlocking a glorious time capsule, filled with priceless treasures of Chinese American classics, such as pressed duck and egg Foo Young, made as I remember them in the 70s and 80s at long ago extinct restaurants such as Trader Vic's or Madame Wu's. Welcome to another Chinese restaurant gem here in Vegas called Amlee. While minutes away from the Strip, it's not within our Chinatown, but on the east side of town at 3827 Sunset Road. This is American Chinese at its best. It's a pleasure going to a Chinese restaurant where you're given a fork, and if you want chopsticks, you'd have to ask for them. We're here today for lunch. Lunch specials include fried or steamed rice, an egg roll, and a cup of soup of the day, which today was the egg drop. On our first trip, we ordered strictly from the lunch special menu. On our second trip, we ordered full entrees that are served a la carte. Here comes Lynn with a full cart of food. She and her husband, Chef Steve, have owned Amlee for 30 or so years. Lynn is super nice and makes you feel right at home right away. After owning a restaurant for years, you realize making guests feel like guests is half the battle to success. The egg drop soup, it's the perfect start to any meal. Since we have 4 lunch specials we ordered, you can see we have 4 bowls of egg drop soup. It's delicious and I would have no problem eating this soup if we didn't have so many other things coming. However, I'm going to practice restraint and just eat the 1 bowl. The soup is made from fresh chicken that's simmered in broth for a long time, then cooled and the fat is removed. It's so rich, a deep, hearty chicken broth with fresh egg used to thicken it. There's no gluggy cornstarch feel or taste to weigh you down. I know many egg drop soup recipes call for a lot of cornstarch as a thickener, but the taste here is light, pure, and fresh. I really love this soup. Lunch specials come with a crispy homemade egg roll. They make them in-house and they're perfection on a plate. Sauteed, shredded Chinese cabbage, carrots, and onions. They're very light, but packed with flavor and go so well in Amlee's delicious sweet and sour sauce or homemade Chinese mustard. We could have eaten 100 of these. All right, let's get going with our first lunch special dish, the almond chicken. Look how beautiful this dish is. You can see the wonderful boneless breast of perfectly fried chicken, garnished with ground almonds, and not a speck of grease in sight. Almond chicken was invented by immigrants here in the good old USA during the early 20th century. Its roots took hold in Detroit, Michigan, where it was conceived by a transplanted Chinese chef to the States. The dish gained popularity over the years, but you rarely see it outside of Detroit. We're lucky to find it here on Amlee's menu. This dish is so wonderful. It's perhaps one of the best Chinese fried chicken creations I've ever had the pleasure of putting in my mouth. Wow, this breading is so light and crisp. The chicken is fresh, moist, and delicate. I noticed from looking around the restaurant that many people seem to be enjoying the almond chicken, and it's clearly a standout dish, and I don't blame them at all. The sauce comes on the side so you can control how much or how little you'd like. I love the fact I can choose to dip mine in so it won't get soggy and weigh down this almost impossibly light and crispy batter. The sauce is a simple gravy with hints of soy and garlic, and the perfect backup singer to the almond chicken. The Mongolian beef, nothing short of spectacular. This famous dish came from Taiwan originally and was inspired by Mongolian barbecue restaurants that became popular in the 1950s. The thing I like most about this particular Mongolian beef is it's not drenched in sweet sauce. It's perfectly seasoned and dressed with a balance of umami, green onions, and spice. Lynn, the owner, clearly understands how this dish is supposed to taste. Though it's an Americanized dish, Mongolian beef should be spicy, slightly sweet, while at the same time have a nice charred flavor, as though it's been singed lovingly on an open fire. The crispy fried cellophane rice noodles bedded underneath are not just a garnish. They add a wonderfully crunchy texture that brings this dish alive and to a higher level. And well, it's as good as any Mongolian beef I've ever tasted. Our American version of orange peeled chicken was developed in 1987 at a popular chain restaurant that will remain nameless here. It quickly became a popular American Chinese dish and a favorite among diners. Of course, there is the traditional dried orange peeled chicken thought to have been made hundreds of years ago in Hunan province of China. As most dishes were prepared back in China, it was chicken on the bone, and not boneless battered and fried pieces of breast meat. It was more of a sautéed stew than a stir-fry dish. Don't take what I'm saying out of context. I love Amlee's take on the Americanized version of this dish. And who's to say it's not authentic? It's a great example of a fusion of Asian and American, and was invented by a Chinese American here in the States. I love the fact that it's not sickeningly sweet and has bitter undertones that balance out the flavor. Though covered in sauce, it's wonderful and crispy. The batter stands up with a steely integrity to the rich umami sauce. Look how beautiful this chicken is. So crunchy, and I'm a huge fan of this sauce. Just the right amount of spicy. Amlee's chow mein is great. Full of char-siu pork, chicken, and shrimp. It's the perfect blend of meat to vegetable ratio, and the sauce it's stir-fried in is just bursting with rich umami flavors. This is comfort food at its finest. Julienne vegetables in a rich soy and umami sauce with hints of garlic and sesame oil. Green garlic chives give this dish that traditional Chinese taste. And a side note, I'm regretful that we didn't realize when we had this dish that Chef Steve makes his own homemade char-siu pork. His friend who helps out sometimes at the restaurant, Ben, he said when he learns a new batch is ready, he comes running to steal some, and it's the best anywhere. We did love it in the chow mein. I can tell how great it is. I'm coming back to get a huge order of it very soon. Crispy duck, also known as almond pressed duck, is something I'm truly excited to find here. This is something that you rarely see served anymore. This dish was thought to have first appeared in the 17th century in Canton and become very popular all over China. Talk about throwback to the 70s and 80s. This was my all-time favorite Chinese dish as a kid, and I was, and still am, obsessed with it. I've been seeking out pressed duck for the last 20 years, asking people on food blogs if they know where I can find it, all to no avail. Most people don't remember what it is anymore and have no idea what I'm talking about. And the ones who do beg me to let them know if I would ever find it, since they, too, are just as obsessed as I am. This iconic dish is the very embodiment of the 70s and 80s Chinese American cuisine. And somehow, it just vanished into thin air. It's probably due to the difficulty of preparing the dish. It's one of the hardest things to make. It's extremely labor intensive. Oh my God, if you remember this dish, you have to come here if for no other reason. It's as good as any I've ever had. Crispy on the outside with crunchy ground almonds and a magnificent batter that coats and protects the soft, moist interior and keeps all that ducky goodness preserved and delicious. They serve it with a savory light gravy that has a magnificent flavor. I remember this dish being served one of two ways. It can have a sweet and sour sauce or a savory one. I love it either way. Here, they have a great sweet and sour sauce, and you can ask for it on the side. I add a little of the sweet and sour to my duck, and I just love the contrast of it with the savory gravy. It's a symphony of flavors dancing on my palate, and a wonderful trip down memory lane. Egg Foo Young, yet another old-fashioned dish that gets harder and harder to find. Back in the day, it was a staple of almost every Chinese restaurant, but now finding it is very difficult. And when you do find it, it's not always the best version. There are only a handful of places that still make it. And well, let's just say they don't do a really good job with it. It usually tastes more like an omelet. At Amlee, one bite of this dish takes me back to the good old days of my youth, when even if you weren't an egg lover, you could fall in love with this dish. This is the combination Egg Foo Young. As you can see, it has bits of char-siu pork, shrimp, chicken, and beef mixed in. I think this is a wonderful interpretation of this dish. It's very complex. I couldn't even tell you what's in it, and I can't wait for you to taste it. It's so wonderful. My umami taste buds are jumping up and down with joy. The gravy here is next level good. Rich, savory, the perfect balance of soy, garlic, and onions. I love the idea of how many things they've managed to combine into the filling. However, I have to say I can't really taste them that much. You can see little carrots and other veggies and hints of garlic chives hugging the minced proteins. Overall, the taste is sensational. However, the next time I order this, I'm just getting the veggie version since I feel that there's not enough proteins in it, taste-wise, to justify paying extra. If you miss egg Foo Young, you're gonna love this. I promise you won't be disappointed. It's waiting for you here at Amlee. This cashew chicken's the embodiment of light, healthy tasting Chinese stir-fry. I absolutely love what Chef Steve does with the cashews. They have a slight give to them on the inside, but are nice and crispy and have a slightly brown flavor that enhances the nuttiness of the cashews. The sauce is so perfectly balanced, it's hard to decipher what's in it. I'm sure there's garlic and white pepper. It's one of the best cashew chicken dishes I've ever had. Besides the cashews, I love all the veggies. Water chestnuts, carrots, onions, and green peppers. They go beautifully with the chicken. The chicken here is always so fresh and as tender as velvet. I'd be happy to eat this dish anytime, and I highly recommend it. Sweet and sour pork is to die for. We usually get sweet and sour chicken, but Lynn recommended the pork, and it was just sensational. I think I like this pork version even more than I do the chicken. Of course, I'm sure the sweet and sour chicken is wonderful here as well. This iconic dish was created in the 1800s in China, and there have been many versions of it made by numerous chefs. The earliest versions in China used chicken on the bone, but of course, we Americans prefer our chicken to be white meat and boneless. Sugar and vinegar have always been two key ingredients in the sauce. The red color comes from food coloring, and yes, most chefs use it in the preparation of this dish. I hope that's not a turn-off for you. Some chefs, even in China, use ketchup. Thank God there's no ketchup in Amlee's sweet and sour pork. In my book, that would be a travesty. This dish is a must-try. At Amlee, they call this creamy shrimp, but we all know it better as the classic honey walnut shrimp. For a long time, this has been one of our favorite dishes. A while back, it resurfaced at a few of the buffets here in Vegas. But before, the farthest back I remember it was the Chinese restaurants in the 80s. It was a popular offering at dim sum houses as well. The Ace Buffet at the Palms had an amazing version of it. And, oddly, the now demolished Texas Station Hotel offered it at their buffet as well. I'm sure its demolition had nothing to do with the quality of its honey walnut shrimp, as it was delicious there. The origin of honey walnut shrimp is thought to have been invented in Hong Kong and used for celebrations such as birthdays and weddings. We try honey walnut shrimp at almost every Chinese restaurant when it's available, and it has been, for the most part, a disappointment. However, today we're pleasantly surprised with Amlee's honey walnut shrimp. It's perfectly crispy while being light at the same time. The prawns are great quality, so fresh you can taste the ocean in them. The sauce is a perfect balance of sweet honey to mayo and condensed milk with a hint of lemon. Many chefs don't make this dish the right way because they skimp out and fail to use the correct ingredients. I love the addition of the veggies under it. We thought at first they were being used as just a garnish, as broccoli might be, but the sauce goes well with them, and they hold their own in the flavor department. The walnuts, really delightful as well. I could eat a whole bowl of them. This is yet another don't miss dish. Kung Pao chicken, or spicy chicken as it's called at Amlee, to me has always been a bellwether dish in Chinese fare, as it indicates the quality of the food one will usually find in all the restaurant's dishes. As you heard me tell you, this was the first Chinese dish I fell in love with as a tot. Here, it's as good as my memories of the fantastic versions my father used to bring home from LA's wonderful Chinatown. While not listed on the menu as Kung Pao, Amlee's spicy chicken is terrific. I love all the vegetables they use here. Celery, water chestnuts, onions, and bits of toasted red spicy peppers really play well off the spicy chicken. The peanuts are decadent and provide a charred, crunchy texture. Though visually it may appear bland, I assure you it's anything but. Nothing we had here was bland, apart from the fried rice, but I believe that was intentionally made to be that way. The Anthony Bourdains and Jonathan Goulds of the world have had a huge influence in the food scene. They ventured into the dark recesses of dangerous neighborhoods and hidden Chinatown gems. These guys discovered places tucked away in the middle of nowhere that made food indicative of the way things were made hundreds of years ago, before Western culture got a hold of it and Americanized it, turning it into mainstream fare. So everything old is new again, and most of our current Chinese restaurants in Las Vegas have reverted back to the authentic ways of making Chinese food the way it was made before American Chinese chefs adapted their cuisine into the modern Chinese fare most of us have grown up to love from the 60s to the 90s. You won't get a fork in these restaurants unless you ask for it, and if you do, you may get a dirty look from your server. I'm not saying I don't love the rich stews, clay pots, and strange exotic dishes that were originally created in ancient Chinese culture. However, Amlee is part of an era many of us miss, and that seems to be going extinct. The fusion of Chinese food that took place in our country was done by great Chinese American chefs, and therefore it's also authentic in its own way. It's so important to appreciate and preserve this moment in time and the food of the 80s that many of us grew up loving. About halfway through our meal, I was flooded with childhood memories of the 70s. Toys such as Slinkies and the Etch-a-Sketch, along with TV shows such as Maude, Welcome Back Kotter, and Hawaii Five-0. It made for a very satisfying and nostalgic meal. Amlee is a rare find and one of our new favorite restaurants. We'll be back here soon, and who knows, maybe we'll see you there. Make sure to tell them Let's Eat Vegas sent you. I know we're all guilty of watching videos on YouTube and not subscribing. As a reminder, it's free to subscribe, and it really helps us bring you more videos. So please like, subscribe, share, comment, and hit the notifications bell. It means a lot to us. Until we eat again, bon appetit.